Over time, what we continue to plant each and every day is going to produce either good or bad fruit. When we choose faithfulness to God in the little everyday things, that is what is going to prepare us to be used by God for big purposes. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video, we're talking about being faithful in the little things. There's so many stories in the Bible where we read about these characters who God uses in these big ways for these huge purposes. And I think we all desire that, right? We all want to be used by God in big ways. But what we don't often get to hear about when we read about these characters in the Bible are those in-between moments, those small everyday habits and the faithfulness in the little things that prepare those characters for the big moments. The truth is, those big moments we read about in the Bible, they simply don't exist without the small daily decisions to be faithful in the little things. I've mentioned in some of my vlogs recently that Tyler and I have been leading a small group through our church, and we've been going through the book of Daniel, and it has been so good. I highly encourage you to read through that book. I've been learning so much. But one of the things that has struck me as we've been studying through the book of Daniel is this concept that being faithful in the little things is what prepares us for the big things. I want you to take a moment to just think about what comes to mind when you hear Daniel's name. What is he known for? You can keep that in your head or feel free to share it in the comments. We're going to circle back around to talk about those big moments and those big purposes that Daniel is known for, but we're also going to take a deeper look at those small everyday habits and his faithfulness in the little things that prepared him for those big moments, those big moments that we then read about and make VeggieTales episodes about. I am so excited for this video because this concept that I am seeing so clearly in the book of Daniel has been so encouraging to me. Before we get into it, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. I make Christian faith and lifestyle content aimed at encouraging you to know God more through His Word and to grow in His likeness, and I would love to have you here. And then give this video a thumbs up if you find it helpful or encouraging. One of the best examples, I think, of faithfulness in the little things is marriage. My parents are about to celebrate 40 years of marriage, and I feel like so many of us long to be that couple with the beautiful, God-honoring marriage of 40, 50, 60, 70 years. But the truth is that big achievement doesn't just happen. Like we're talking about in this video, it is the result of daily faithfulness in the little things. I was trying to think of like a meaningful way to celebrate and honor my parents for their 40th wedding anniversary. And I don't know about you guys, but I truly hate just like giving a gift to give something, but at the same time, sometimes you just don't know what to get. But I have to share with you what I ended up deciding on for their anniversary because it just might be the most special, timeless gift I've ever given. It made them cry, and it definitely made me cry too. I had an original song created for them inspired by their story and the life they've shared together, and I'm gonna share a snippet of the song and their reaction to the song here in just a second. But I got to create this song through Songfinch, and I am so excited to be partnering with them on this video because I was honestly just so impressed with the process of creating the song and then also the final result, more importantly, of the song. And if you are looking for a meaningful gift idea or a grand gesture to do for somebody you love, this is the most special idea. If you haven't heard of Songfinch before, it lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life or by people you love, and it is completely unique and personal. The process was super simple. Basically, you just give some info about who the song is for, what feel you want it to have, and then you can select from available artists within the genre that you want the song to be and listen to some of their samples to get an idea of who you like best. So like, for example, my parents are huge country music fans, and specifically they love George Strait. So I picked the artist that was really just giving off those vibes. And then you give some information about what you want to be in the song, and then the professional artist will write and record a song for you in 4 to 7 days. Here's a snippet of me showing the song that I got to create to my parents.
Gary and Roxanne, it was meant to be right from the start. God put you two together when He touched your hearts. One minute when Cody was born, and Kaci came in '92. The word was pride and joy. Now you're me and Papa. After all these years, it's still about about the little things. Without you in our lives, we would never be the same.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, Kaci, that's a little. How'd you do that?
I literally tear up every time I listen to that because I think it is just so beautiful to have something so personal that celebrates my parents and what they mean to us and the story that God has written in their lives. And I think the best part about it is that all of us, like their kids and their grandkids, literally have this to cherish forever. And so if you're looking for the most special gift idea, I cannot recommend Songfinch enough. Mother's Day is just around the corner. My parents' anniversary actually falls on Mother's Day this year. And so whether your song is for Mother's Day or an upcoming graduation gift or a wedding or an anniversary or just to show someone you love that you care, you can start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. And for a limited time, Songfinch is also allowing my viewers to upload their song to Spotify for free with the code Kaci Nicole so that you and the person that you gift your song to can listen to it whenever and wherever. Go to songfinch.com/Kaci Nicole to start your song, and then after you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming to your original song for free. This is typically a $50 add-on value, so this is a great deal. Again, my link is songfinch.com/Kaci Nicole, and don't forget to share your song with me if you do end up creating one. A huge thank you to Songfinch for sponsoring this video and for the really, really special song for my parents. Now back to our Daniel Bible study. So I asked you to think about what comes to mind when you think about the story of Daniel, what big moments come to mind. And I'm guessing that for most people, the biggest thing that comes to mind when thinking about Daniel's story is the lion's den. Daniel in the lion's den, right? So in Daniel chapter 6, some of the king's officials are jealous of Daniel because he has basically become higher in rank and more distinguished than all of them. And they are looking for a fault or a complaint to find against him, but they couldn't find any. And so instead, they essentially deceived the king into creating this document saying that anyone who makes a petition to anyone other than the king would be thrown into the lion's den. What this meant is that Daniel legally was not allowed to pray to God, but this was not an option for him. In Daniel 6 verse 11 it says, "Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petition and plea before his God." As a result, Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, which should have meant certain death, but when they went to go check on Daniel in the morning, to their surprise, they found that Daniel was still alive. Here's what it says, Daniel 6 verses 21 through 23. "Then Daniel said to the king, 'O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no harm.' Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him because he had trusted in his God." So Daniel is known for this miraculous story of God's power being so clearly displayed through the shutting of the mouths of the lions, who, by the way, devoured anyone and everyone else who was thrown into their den. But God protected Daniel because Daniel placed his trust in him and refused, even despite the commands of the king, to turn from God or to turn from faithfulness to him. So Daniel's known for this big story, but there's also a lot of other big moments in the book of Daniel. In chapter 1, Daniel and his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were brought as exiles from Israel into Babylon, but they refused to completely assimilate to the Babylonian culture because they knew that their true identity was Israelites, that they were God's people, that they were meant to be set apart. And so as all the other people were being fed food from the king's table, Daniel and his friends make this request that they would only eat vegetables and see what would happen. This, by the way, is where we get the idea of the Daniel fast, and God honored this decision. Here's what it says in Daniel 1:15. "At the end of 10 days, it was seen that they were better in appearance and fatter in flesh than all the youths who ate the king's food." So they were just living off vegetables, but God enabled them to be strong through that because they were choosing that faithfulness. And God was glorified through this big moment of big purpose. In Daniel chapter 2, Daniel correctly interprets a puzzling dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had had. And this was a dream that no magician, no enchanter, no man on earth, the text says, had been able to interpret. Yet God gave Daniel the ability to do so. Here's what it says in Daniel 2:19. Then the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Once again, God is glorified through this big moment of big purpose, because it becomes so clear to the king that, wow, even the people who were most versed and experts in the field of interpreting dreams, they couldn't interpret this one, but God gave Daniel the ability to do so. There must be something about that God of Daniel's. In Daniel chapter 3, King Nebuchadnezzar sets up this golden image that he then commands everyone to bow down to, but Daniel's friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refuse. They are threatened with being thrown into the fiery furnace if they did not worship this false god, yet they remained steadfast. Here's what it says in Daniel 3:17 through 18. Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. I think this is such a beautiful depiction of faith. That true faith isn't just having faith that God is going to come through for us in the way that we hope he'll come through, or that he is going to answer our prayer in the exact way that we think that he should answer our prayer. But true faith is bringing that prayer before him, bringing that desire before him, and then trusting him regardless of the result. Saying, God, even if this doesn't go the way that I think it should, even if this isn't answered in the way that I'm hoping it is, I still trust in you and you are still good. For Daniel and his friends, their hope wasn't in what God could do for them or in what God could give them, but their hope was in God himself. And if you know how that story ends, there's 3 men that are thrown into the fire, but as they look into the fiery furnace, there's 4 in the fire. And it is this picture of Jesus there with them, protecting them from the flames, because when we are in Jesus, the fires that we walk through serve no longer to burn us, but to refine us and to bring us into his image. And it says that the fire was so hot that their shackles fell off of them. They were set free from their shackles, but they were not harmed. And once again, God is glorified through this big moment of big purpose. There's so much else that happens throughout the book of Daniel, and so many other big moments of big purpose, the kind that we look at and say, man, I want God to use me like that. But once again, the only reason that Daniel was ready for those big moments, those big purposeful moments, is because he was faithful in the little everyday things. We don't get to read about all of the small choices that Daniel made continually, or the little habits that he upheld day after day after day after day, because the story focuses on the big plot points of the story that God was writing through Daniel's life. But as Daniel is preparing to be thrown into the lion's den, we get a little bit of insight into what those daily habits and decisions and choices were. Here's what it says in Daniel 6:10. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had done previously. As Daniel faced what he thought probably could have been certain death, he prayed. And my favorite part about this verse is the part where it says, as he had done previously. It's easy to assume here that, Daniel's in this life and death situation, so he's going to be fervently going before God, fervently praying to God, fervently pleading with God 3 times a day. But that wasn't the case. According to the text, this was nothing new. This is exactly what he had always done. It said, as he had previously done. Daniel is commanded not to pray to anyone but the king, but Daniel had always prayed prayed to his God. This was his daily habit and he wasn't going to change it. He also wasn't going to hide it. I love that the text says his windows were open. He wasn't trying to conceal anything. He was bold in continuing about the daily choices of small faithfulness he had always made. Another thing I think is interesting about this verse is it says that his windows were open toward Jerusalem. So as he prayed, he was fixing his gaze on where he was from. I have a whole video talking about what true influence means, looking at this specifically from the book of Daniel if you want to check it out. But I think this is such a good reminder to us that we are living in this world, but we are not of it. We are living in this world, but it is not our true home. Daniel was an Israelite, but he was living in Babylon as an exile. But even though he was in this place that was not his true home, he remembered where he was truly from and what his true identity is. And the same is for us. Our true citizenship is in heaven. And in order for us to remain steadfast amidst the temptations and persecutions we may face in this world, we must remember that heaven is our ultimate home, to fix our gaze there, to continually orient our hearts there, to remind ourselves of where we are going and where is our true home. Something interesting came up when we were discussing Daniel chapter 6 in our small group last week, and that is the timing of everything. So when you're reading through this book, we go right from chapter 1, where Daniel does the 21-day vegetable fast, into the next chapter where he interprets the dream, and then into the fiery furnace, and then to more interpretations of dreams, and then to the lion's den. And so because you're kind of just going from one event to the next, it's easy to assume as you're reading that these big events or these big moments all happened relatively close to one another. But something we found from a commentary as we were looking more at this is that at the time of the lion's den, Daniel was actually probably closer to 80 years old. Now compare that with the 17 or 18-year-old teenager he was believed to be in Daniel chapter 1. As we look at the fact that Daniel had this habit of praying 3 times a day and giving thanks to God with his gaze fixed on his true home, it is even more astounding to realize that this habit was built up and consistently continued over a period of 80 years. Daniel's faithfulness in the little things is what prepared him to be used by God in the big. Just like my parents' song highlights the big plot points of their lives, like meeting and getting married and having my brother and I and becoming grandparents, what you don't know unless you spend time with them on a consistent basis are the little habits that have created and contributed to those big milestones and achievements. And the same is true for each of us. Every single day we are faced with a million little decisions, and each of those little decisions becomes a seed that we sow. We can either choose to sow seeds of laziness and bitterness and selfishness, or we can choose to sow seeds each day of discipline, grace, faithfulness, forgiveness, of choosing to use our tongues to speak words of life. Over time, what we continue to plant each and every day is going to produce either good or bad fruit. When we choose faithfulness to God in the little everyday things, that is what is going to prepare us to be used by God for big purposes. To apply this in your marriage or in your friendships, are you sowing seeds of bitterness and unforgiveness? Or are you sowing seeds of grace, love, commitment? In your work, are you sowing seeds of laziness, or are you sowing seeds of hard work and integrity, even if you're maybe not yet in the role that you'd like to be in? In your relationship with God, are you sowing seeds of apathy, or are you showing up to seek Him each and every day, even when you don't feel like it, or even when you might not understand what He's doing? In your finances, are you sowing seeds of greed and dishonesty and tight-fistedness, or are you sowing seeds of gratitude and generosity? Our daily choices matter. Our faithfulness in the little things matters. Ask yourself, what do you want the fruit of your marriage, friendships, career, relationship with God, finances to be in 40 years. The beautiful thing about God's grace is that it is never too late to repent of any bad seeds that we've been sowing and to ask for His help in turning things around. I would love to hear from you down in the comments. What is one little thing God is asking you to be faithful in today? I'm going to be sharing my answer to that in a pinned comment as well. And as a reminder, if you want to create a meaningful song for a loved one, you can go to songfinch.com/Kaci Nicole. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.